back and bigger than ever. It's the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is the Unofficial 40 podcast, Cotton Bowl preview show. As I am Carrie Burdock, we welcome in Eddie Radosevich and Bob Presbillo. And Josh McQuistion broke his house. So to be fair, he did join an hour-and-a-half podcast yesterday that went into the ether somehow. So he was not able to join today. But we have plenty to talk about because OU getting ready to play in the Cotton Bowl. Word breaking this morning that Jadon Haselwood would not be a part of it. So we've been dealing with that a little bit the last couple of hours. And what we can tell you is, yes, Jadon Haselwood has opted out of the bowl game and the practices this week. So he will not be a member of the team. Why that is, I think is up for debate. I know, Bob, you reached out and talked to his people, and they've signaled that all is well, all is fine.
They did. You know, it's someone I've been in touch with before for Jadon news, and it's not always positive, but he kind of, the theory with them right now is that he wants to get healthy, really rest up, do it right, and then be ready to really make that splash in 2021, which is basically what all OU fans want as well.
And just to be clear, this is something, opting out, that, he obviously, when they say clear it with Lincoln Riley, he told Lincoln Riley, I'm not going to play. And Lincoln's basically like, okay, well, go get healthy. Take your time, all of that. And then you turn around and you're posting training videos, which is probably not the smartest thing because coaches see that. They're football guys, and they're like, what the hell? If you're hurt or you want to get healthy, what are you doing? Why aren't you just working out with us? Why aren't you practicing with us? Why aren't you playing with us? If you can train, you can play. So, yeah, I mean, look, that's one thing about Lincoln, Eddie, is he's always player first, and he is never going to show any frustration about things like this. As, Dan Mullen didn't show any frustrations about his guys this morning on the last press conference the coaches had. That's their jobs, is to put on a public front. That doesn't mean that behind the scenes guys aren't like, God damn it.
I think that's kind of what has pushed a lot of college coaches out of the industry in a way and made it unenjoyable to a certain extent, is because you have to put up with so much bullshit right now. And whether it be a trainer or whether it be a parent or whether it be whoever that is connected back to the kid or in their ear, you kind of just got to, I think that's why you have to have a lot of trust when you sign that letter of intent and when you get to a campus. And I get it. Like, he's probably frustrated. I think my official take on this is he's frustrated. I get it. Probably wants to be a little bit more part of the offense. But in all reality, the guy's been hurt for the last year. It's not like he's not coming off of a serious leg injury. And, I think that everybody probably just needs a reset on this. I would be a little surprised if it ends up that Jadon Haselwood isn't part of the Oklahoma program in 2021, but I get it. Like, people are going to freak out. I completely understand the freak out side of it. I also understand the other side of it as far as I think everybody just needs to breathe here and let this thing kind of iron itself out. And I get the frustration. I'm sure that he wants to see the ball more. I'm sure that he wants to play more. But also at the same time, I get it from the other side of it and from the coaching side of it, from the perspective of, like, who the fuck are the fans to question what Oklahoma's doing offensively? They've put up historically great offenses over the last 3-4 seasons. They've had Heisman Trophy winners. They've had a Blitnikoff winner. They've had multiple All-Americans at the wide receiver position. If you don't like it, leave. Like, I don't get it. I guess, like, the second guessing of what Oklahoma is doing offensively right now by the fan base is just ignorant to a certain extent because their favorite player's not playing. Well, guess what? Other guys are playing better than him.
Well, and the board is flipping out. I
completely get it. He shouldn't be playing in front of Charleston. Like, Charleston Rambo should not be playing in front of him. If it was up to me, Rambo wouldn't be playing any. That probably guarantees that he has 3 touchdowns against Florida on Wednesday night. But like, I think that's just like, I think that's kind of the fan base's viewpoint as far as like, so you're telling me why is Rambo have all these snap counts when, Haselwood can't get on the field? It's like, I mean, goddamn, the guy's only been available for 3 games this year. He's been available for 4, and one of them was because he couldn't even dress out because he was in quarantine.
I think part of the problem, too, stems from the fact that how many times did Lincoln publicly praise Jadon for how he handled the situation?
Early in the
August
season,
and in October. I mean, he kept saying how he was as all in with the team as you could possibly be for someone that's hurt.
Yeah, and look, it's the thing about it is this is reality, and like I said, it's Lincoln's job to paint a pretty picture of everything. And if we knew the amount of turmoil that went on behind the scenes on a daily basis,
people would think that the program is literally melting down.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like this happens a lot, and there's a reality to it, which is coaches get pissed off. I mean, they don't like dealing with this stuff. They want their players to play. They don't want trainers always being in control of guys and things like that. It's just I will say this. I have been told that several coaches feel like this is a very weird situation with Jadon and what's going on, and they're not comfortable. So, and it's his trainer's job to say, "Oh no, everything's fine. This is all cleared, through the coaches. This is no big deal. He's coming back. He's completely behind Oklahoma." Like, there's a certain level of skepticism here because he's not playing football, and he can be playing football. And I'm just telling you, that's an exact quote that I got just as we're doing this podcast, that a few coaches think it's, quote, really weird, end quote.
And it's something that Bob just brought up too. Remind you, like, he's been around the program through thick and thin through all of this. And so now it's like, well, I'm not going to come back home or I'm not coming back to Norman from Georgia or wherever the hell he is because I want to get ready for the next season. Yet you put in all of that legwork over the last, 6-7 months to be around the program and to have Lincoln Riley kind of go out of his way to say that he was a leader in the program. I think Bob hit it right on the head. Like, it is a very strange, awkward way to go through it.
And then, like I said, you're posting videos of you working out.
Sure.
Well, all this is good. Like, what? Like, at some point, you have to realize how things look. Like, you might be saying something, but you're doing something else. And are you training to come back to Oklahoma? Like, there's just when your actions don't match up with your words, people are going to kind of notice that, and they're going to question how legitimate your words really are.
And the backlash among the 5-star receivers, I don't know if it's just the board or if it's actually like a growing trend of OU fans that believe these guys have not lived up to their promises and maybe are skeptical that they can even reach that point just based on what they've seen from them throughout the first 2 years.
Well, and the other thing is, if you're an offensive coach at Oklahoma, you've seen that it's taken time for Spencer Rattler to gain trust in his receivers. And once he's done it, it's paid huge dividends, whether it's Theo Weiss or Austin Stogner, even, just go down light. He never gained that with Charleston Rambo because Charleston Rambo just either doesn't make plays or isn't open enough. And they want him to have a big game against good competition with Spencer Rattler as a receiver. And that could really help him going into next year. It could help his relationship with Spencer Rattler to play one more game. I mean, like that play that he made in the Big 12 championship game, you think Spencer Rattler, when he gets into trouble, that he's not going to look more for Jadon Haselwood if he keeps making plays like that for him? So he's just missing an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, it truly doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I think that's why it's easy for a lot of people to kind of speculate and kind of wonder what's really going on there. It truly doesn't make sense. And I do understand the other side of it too, as far as like, well, if you're not going to play, you can't travel to the bowl game. I get that. I get that point, like with COVID and the travel rules and everything that's going into the weirdness of bowl season. It just, I don't know. It's a very awkward thing, but if I had to guess, I bet cooler heads prevail at some point. And, we end up looking at this as far as, something that is probably bigger right now than it actually really is. But then again, you can't just completely close the book on it.
We're not going to stop checking the portal. That's for sure.
No, I mean, it has to be done now.
So, that being said, and that out of the way a little bit.
Bowl week.
Welcome to Bowl Week. Where, opt-outs. I mean, can you imagine like the Florida podcast right now? I mean, holy hell.
I've talked to them a little bit because we've been, exchanging stuff for the 5 questions and, the folks down at Gators territory. And I think that I told Nick yesterday, I was like, I can't even begin to imagine what that fan base is like. Not to mention the fact that I think I don't think it's gone underreported at all. I think everybody knows, but like, it's not like Florida's exactly playing their best football of the season coming into this one too, having lost 2 straight.
Well, their biggest problem is they're like Oklahoma has been, which is their defense isn't great, but their offense saves their ass. And that LSU game, the reason they lost it is because their defense is not great and their offense just didn't make enough plays. And they missed a field goal at the end of the game. But now you take away 4 of your top 5 receivers and you still have the same defense, but you don't have the offense. You don't have the shoe thrower, by the way. He opted out, which might be addition by subtraction. But, I mean, now you're sitting there and you have a team going into a bowl game that might not be able to keep up with the other team now.
What's interesting for the guys they're missing is we don't know if it's like last year. Like, we knew when Turner Yell went down, that was going to be like a death blow. There's no way OU could overcome that against LSU. But with these guys being out, does Florida have some young pups that have been waiting for this moment? Like, if you would give a comparison, this would be like guys going down so that Trajan Bridges can now play 50 to 60 snaps. Like, are there guys that are talked about within the Gators community, like we talk about some of the guys here, that you're like, why aren't these young guys playing? Oh, Wednesday night's going to be exactly their chance to show why they should be out there.
In short, I think the answer is no. I think that a lot of that has to do just with the fact that the 4, or I guess the 3 opt-outs and then the COVID casualty, Kyle Pitts, obviously he's top 10 draft pick.
Right.
You look at the other 2 wide receivers, and Tony and Grimes, and it's like, I mean, there's a lot of production there. Even Jacob Copeland, the kid that's the COVID casualty, I mean, he's 4th in receptions on the team, and I don't know where Trask is going to get the ball out to, especially if Oklahoma can get some pressure on him.
Yeah, as well as OU has recruited, I mean, you take away Austin Stogner, you take away Marvin Mims, you take away Theo Wees, and then, hell, who do you take away next? Rambo, I guess? And you tell me that receiving rotation looks good, even with, with your backup talent that you've recruited. It doesn't.
It looks good, but some like a Keon Zipperer, the backup tight end, some like, is it Xavier or Xavier Henderson? That's a former Rivals 100 recruit that's kind of just been waiting in the wings. So I'm not saying they're going to be as good as what, Grimes, Tony, and Pitts have been, but maybe this is their springboard. This is the type of opportunity they've been looking for to show what they can do heading into 2021. I don't know.
Well,
I just don't see it as a big of a deal at the lose-lose scenario that people have been saying. I don't see it that way because I think Florida's going to have some guys emerge, and Kyle Trask is still there. So the one that's leading the charge is still running the show. Then he's going to figure out how to make these pieces work.
I'll say this. He doesn't even have to step on the field, and I've already gained more respect for Kyle Trask for just playing in this game. I mean,
go ahead.
I mean, just anybody that cared about, their stock would have opted out in this day and age. and he's not going to.
I think that his story is kind of knowing his story or becoming more familiar with it. I think it's one of those things that you kind of got to take a step back and go, yeah, I could understand why he's still playing. Just kind of the way that he went through Manville, had to wait his time, went to Florida, had to wait his time, and then he's obviously taken advantage of it. But it's kind of crazy to think too that like this is happening to a Heisman finalist in a way. I don't know. Maybe it's not weird. It's just like he's thrown for over 4,000 yards, obviously 43 touchdowns, the 5 interceptions. I just feel like, I don't know. Maybe it's being undersold a little bit how good he really is. Now you do look at the numbers, and I think it was Greg McElroy that brought it up. Pretty good point on Gabe and Teddy's podcast, just as far as he had a lot of touchdowns inside the 10-yard line this year, and that might inflate the numbers a little bit. But at the same time, Kyle Trask, good quarterback, a really good quarterback.
Oh, he throws a great deep ball.
And to think that, he's not going to make some guys better on Wednesday night. I guess my point is Oklahoma's still only a 3.5-point favorite, even with the casualties. Like, I still think that this could be a pretty good football game if OU, obviously they go out and turn the ball over, Rattler turns the ball over, or they're not able to get off the field on third down. Like, if Oklahoma goes 1 for 11 again on third down like they were in the Big 12 championship, they're going to get beat Wednesday night. Florida can still play a pretty good football.
Yeah, I mean, it's dangerous from the perspective of, do you let down thinking this is a pushover now for the defense, which,
right.
I mean, you're still going to have to get pressure on Trask, and that's going to be the key to this whole thing. And Florida can get pressure as well. I mean, they're pretty good at the pass rush positions. And, defensively, Elam's a really good player. Is he a great player? He has some holes in his game, but at the same time, you're going to have to go out there and make plays on both sides of the ball to win this thing. It's not going to be, even without, the top 4 receivers, you're still, Kyle Trask is still going to put together an offense because he's just that good defensively. You're going to have to get pressure. You're going to have to defend, Woody Washington and DJ Graham and Jadon Davis. I mean, they're going to have to play good games in order to win.
Yeah, and this might be a breakout chance for Graham. I mean, the way things have trended, I think it's going to be Woody and DJ starting with Jadon Davis being in that third role. And, if Graham can really make that leap, that's sort of what I'm saying with the Florida guys. You switch it to the Sooners and say there's no Trey Brown, but DJ Graham's been waiting for this moment, and now it's here. Let's see what he does with it.
Yeah, and Alex Grinch was asked about, possibly moving Trey Norwood to corner. I don't think they'll need to do that, and I would be surprised if we didn't see Trey Norwood starting at nickel once again, because I think that worked out pretty well in the Big 12 game.
Yeah, and it sounds like Buki, rolling with the punches. I mean, you could say he needs to be. He has no leg to stand on in terms of saying demand to be out there, but it didn't seem like it was a big issue, and you can just move Trey from nickel and safety to whatever you need on that particular drive.
I guess it's kind of a cop-out too, but I still am kind of, I guess, excited in a way to see what this front seven for Oklahoma can do against just another team. Like, I don't know why I keep telling myself that they need to prove it in somehow, some form, but I'm kind of excited to see how much pressure those guys, Ronnie Perkins, Nick Bonino, Isaiah Thomas, Perrion Winfrey, can he finish some plays up front? I'm excited to see how this group matches up against I guess, for the lack of a better term, I mean, what they are, an SEC team. I hate being that guy.
Well, we talked about this. Ed? We talked about this yesterday, Bob, on the Lost podcast.
The Lost Pod.
Lincoln Riley needs an SEC win.
Yes.
I mean, he really needs. I mean, Bob fought that monster. He beat Alabama. He lost early to LSU. He lost to Florida in a national championship. They took 2 away from him. But then when they became the dominant force in college football, Bob was the one that fought back, and he was the one that actually took some verbal jabs. He kind of went Steve Spurrier a little bit, and then he beat Alabama, and then he beat Auburn. And his final game.
Tennessee.
Yeah, and he beat Tennessee in back-to-back years. So on their own field. Like, Lincoln has lost to Georgia. He's lost to Alabama. He's lost to LSU. He does not have that signature SEC win as a head coach. So people don't look at that LSU game last year and say, well, yeah, remember OU was losing these people. No, OU went out and got their ass kicked, and that's all people remember. If Lincoln goes out and kicks LSU's ass, that's just, he finally has a signature win against the SEC then.
Exactly. And, Eddie's talking about the OU defense. Part of it, I was looking at, I think Florida's the first top 20 offense that the Sooners have played the entire season, which sounds astounding when you're looking at the Big 12 and what it's been. But compared to what it is, Gators are ranked at number 9 at 508 yards per game. And, this for all those people who said, oh, they did it against, Texas Tech and Kansas, this is their moment. This is what they've been waiting to see, is could they do it against an actual high-powered offense? And it just so happens that the SEC is the one that's supplying that firepower now.
Yeah, and Iowa State is just such a different team with their tight ends and their run game, and that was an impressive performance in the Big 12. But yeah, you haven't had the quarterbacks in this league this year. I mean, really, people kind of figured it out, and Spencer Rattler started getting a lot more accolades from the national, Big 12 teams than he did from the coaches. But really, on paper, Spencer Rattler was the most dynamic passing quarterback in the Big 12 this year. It wasn't Sam Ehlinger. It wasn't Brock Purdy. It wasn't Charlie Brewer. I mean, it wasn't Spencer Sanders for sure. I mean, there just was not that Heisman level quarterback in the league this year.
I think that's probably that's a better version of what I was trying to say earlier. I'm excited to see how this defense matches up. And Bob, you wrote about it today in one of the notebooks, just as far as I'm excited to see how this defense matches up with a quarterback that we know is very, very capable. Like 2-3 years ago, I'd be pretty damn hard pressed to say that OU is going to win this football game. We'll see if I've kind of been fooled by what they've done defensively, but I think that up front you can get enough pressure on somebody like a Kyle Trask to force him at least into maybe some uncomfortable decisions, and then are you good enough to take advantage of that?
And Trask is a good runner. I mean, he pulls it down and picks up first downs a lot when he doesn't have anything open. So he's a guy that's going to be able to move around. He's not just going to be standing back there as a statue in the pocket.
It's the revenge game for Jean DeLance, right? Or revenge game for the Sooners against him.
God, that's a name I haven't thought of in a while.
I think you literally just sent me into PTSD. I got to go run down to the bottom of the Orange Bowl Stadium to smoke cigarettes now.
I remember we couldn't figure out if it was Jean or Jean.
Still don't know. No clue.
And I asked him one time, and he was like, it's both. I was like, oh, thanks. That really helps. So he doesn't ever correct anybody. And I think I was asking that question, like, what does your mom call you? And I think it was Jean. So, anyway. I'm really excited to see Ronnie Perkins, excited to see Isaiah Thomas, excited to see Nick Bonito go up against that offensive line. And really, this is potentially could be, as much as we're talking about Kyle Trask, this could also be the one player that who could have the biggest breakout from this game, I think, is Spencer Rattler.
Sure. I mean, I think that you go out and you put together a, whatever you want to call a really good performance, and all of a sudden it's kind of goes back to the springboard theory. And I don't believe that, like, if OU goes out and wins by 2 touchdowns, they're automatically a shoo into the playoff next season. There's a lot that goes into a season that's going to be a different set of circumstances. There's going to be different players on the team come next year. But I do think, just from a psyche-wise and from a mentality-wise, if you go out and play well, Spencer Rattler's, I mean, it in a way, they're the only game on Wednesday night. It's going to be the main attraction. He could really kind of vault himself into this, I'm here, and this offense is going to be, sky's the limit here over the next few seasons if you're able to put together a really good performance Wednesday night. And, everything that anybody has said about this Florida defense, he's going to have opportunities. Can he make the throws? And over the last couple of weeks, you would think that he has progressed into a quarterback. And Bob, you wrote about it, up on the site on Tuesday morning. You would think that the steps he's made from a maturation process, from just everything that goes into becoming the quarterback at Oklahoma, it's clear that he is more comfortable today than he was, even a month ago when they were playing. Maybe it hasn't looked as good as it needs to, but some of the throws that he made against Iowa State, I think we'll go back and probably appreciate him more.
Oh, some awesome throws.
We get out from that game.
Yeah, and what Lincoln Riley said flat out, he thought that was the best game that he's played. The numbers don't say that. Numbers don't say the Big 12 championship was the best game that Rattler played this season, but just the way that he commanded things and just that there is a different aura about him. He seems more in control, and it's coming through. Now, maybe you wonder about some of the play calling, especially in the second half, but I mean, I don't think there's that sense of when's the other shoe going to drop when it comes to Rattler, like maybe there was during the first month of the season where you had the good with the bad. You're starting to get into that mode of thinking, all right, how many good plays is he going to make, because he's got that much talent and he's understood how to bounce back from his early mistakes.
It's funny. You look at the numbers, and I ended up looking back at it yesterday. Pre-benching at Texas, obviously coming in the second quarter down at the Cotton Bowl, 77 of 107, 105-1, 11 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Post, benching, sitting, timeout, whatever you want to call it, 123 of 187, 1,733 yards, 14 touchdowns, and then obviously the big number, the 2 interceptions, just the 2 interceptions. So he's taking care of the ball much, much better. And I think that, if anything, it's just he knows that he probably doesn't have to do everything like he was trying to, when you go back and you look at the Kansas State game or even the Iowa State game, throwing the interception there on the final possession on 1st and 10 when OU seemingly is starting to move the football.
And I think the one thing that Spencer has not shown us that he's going to show us in the future is just kind of that closer mentality. Like, he did throw that pass into the end zone on 3rd down before they kicked the final field goal, and everybody was saying, why would you do that? You could have forced Iowa State to take another timeout. But I didn't mind that. Like, I thought, okay, he's trying to close out that game. Like, that's what you want to see out of your quarterback. You want to see a little bit of a killer mentality. And I think he has it, but he just hasn't come through yet in that moment to where he needs to take. I mean, there were several opportunities where, at least 2, where he could have taken that team on a game-clinching drive to just put it out of reach for Iowa State, and it didn't happen. And you're just waiting for that Spencer Rattler to emerge. The
one question, when I was there live, I didn't think Haselwood had a legitimate shot at catching it. What did you guys think watching on TV? Was that something?
He had
Jadon's got
he had a better shot at catching that than Trajan Bridges did of his diving touchdown. I'm saying that catch was easier than the one Bridges didn't make.
I would say it was more catchable to a certain extent, but I mean, for Haselwood to come down with that would have been one of those, holy shit, look at the play that he just made. Same with Bridges. I thought he had. I don't know. I might have gone the other way, Kerry. I might have said that the Bridges ball was a little bit more catchable.
I'll just say, the more I watch the Cleveland,
they both would have been great plays. There's no doubt about that.
The thing that I would like to see develop with Rattler a little bit more is the more that I watch Baker Mayfield in Cleveland, he's gotten so good at the back shoulder stuff. And that never really was a thing. Like, I don't know why Lincoln doesn't seem to do that a whole lot in his offense. Am I off there? Because I just feel like if you had Jadon Haselwood running a lot of that back shoulder stuff, he would dominate. And I know he's done it to Mims a little bit.
No, he really doesn't, not with the size. Same with, Stogner. Doesn't really use them in that type of role for whatever reason.
And it baffles me because it works so well for Baker in the NFL. And he didn't really do that at Oklahoma either. But I don't know. That's just something I keeps popping into my head. You think of the receivers that they have. So
it's probably a little bit easier to do it to somebody like a Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, but Baker does it like with the Higgins guy, and man, his receivers that he had on Sunday. Oh my God!
Win Sunday.
Well, no Big Ben, So
can't lose to Mason Rudolph.
No, that would be bad. That's probably that's enough to get Baker fired up, knowing that he's going to play a former OSU quarterback.
Shit, I think I saw Jake tweet earlier. They are up to a 10-point favorite. They haven't been a double-digit favorite against a team with a winning record in 52 years. Wow. I mean, that's the kind of like turnaround that Baker has kind of installed up there. I don't give a damn what people say. It's been an incredible turnaround to get this team into the position that it did. I know this isn't a Browns podcast.
That's okay. They're the Oklahoma City Browns
but
now.
It's on my heart right now. I might fly up there Sunday. Stay with the Trotter family.
They probably won't let you.
You never know.
Maybe Bob can put in a good word for you.
Patty's like family, right? Come on.
I'm just saying. The liquor cabinet will be empty by the time he leaves.
I'm helping him.
You'll be babysitting the kids, smoking a Gert the entire time.
It's called building character.
By the way, I want to remind you guys, our great sponsor, Dead Soxy, been with us all season. You guys have been supporting them. We can't thank you enough, but go to deadsoxy.com, DEADSOXY.com. They've still got the Holiday Pro promotion going on where you can get 35% off your entire order. So go shop all their collections. You get 35% off, promo code Holiday Pro, all one word. And you can shop from the No-Show, the Boardroom, the collabs, the Alumni Collection, get your Crimson and Cream colorways. They have multi-packs, so you can get different socks for different sporting events. Eddie, I know you're a big Dead Soxy fan. You love them on the golf course as well.
Yeah, and you know what? It's getting ready to be that time of the year where the weather's going to be starting to get a little bit more nicer out, and people are going to be able to get out onto the course here in January and February in some places throughout the South, in Oklahoma included. I love the cutoff sock, though. It is perfect for the golf shoe. You won't be able to see the sock when you put it on. I'm a big fan of that. And can
I tell you something?
I've even doubled up on them, too.
Eddie, you have surprisingly nice legs.
Thank you. I pride myself on great legs.
You're not a very hairy man, and you just...
Sometimes I wish that I was. Like, my head fills in, but yeah, everywhere else, I can't grow a beard, so I'm a little bit of a loser in that regard. If you're getting back in the office and you want to look good, you might go for a Boardroom 3-pack. You might go for the 10-pack. It's on sale right now for $140. So great place, and these things do not fall down, so you don't have to worry about having a worm ankle throughout the day. Those things will stay up for you. But Dead Soxy, DEADSOXY. Holiday Pro is that promo code. You get 35% off your entire order. Go see them today. And remember, guys, stay Soxy. Okay, so one of the things that we got into this week is who will stay and who will go. And for whatever reason, the board blew up this week about Isaiah Thomas when, it was some out of the blue theory that he could leave after the season and go to the NFL when it's literally been talked about. And it was like, why haven't you guys brought this up before? It's like, that's all we've been talking about all year. Like Ronnie Perkins, Isaiah Thomas, and we haven't really been talking about Nick Bonito, even though he's eligible as a redshirt sophomore. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just saying.
Right.
The possibility is certainly there, and he was even asked about the NFL. Not will he go, but he was asked about his NFL future at the Cotton Bowl Media Day this year. So I didn't understand why it was that people are so... I guess they just don't want to lose him. I understand that, but that it could be even out there or thought about or talked about that he might be a candidate to leave early.
I think that's what it goes back to. It's just that he didn't do anything those first 3 years on campus. And while this year was exceptional for him, does it really feel like he's done enough that you would want to leave? But we've seen it. Dominic Alexander, Devontae Lampkin. We've seen people on defense leave when it didn't. We thought it didn't make sense. I personally totally agree. I don't think he goes, but he's put enough film out there this season to, in his mind, think that he's done enough. I don't think he has. I think one more year would be very beneficial for him. But you don't know what his mental state is and what he wants to accomplish here moving forward.
Well, and he's great to talk to. He's a great interview.
Oh, yeah. I voted him first.
Did you? I voted him second.
Okay.
I voted for Jeremiah Hall first. I just felt like you couldn't deny him. He was so good with the media. But no, I mean, yeah, he is a guy that gets bigger. But we've been talking about him all year, just about how much more athletic he is than people give him credit for. You don't even really notice his size when he's playing on the inside because he uses leverage so well. He uses his hands so well. I mean, I've sat there and just watched him through the binoculars, and it's amazing. He mentioned Aaron Donald, so you can tell he wasn't comparing himself to Aaron Donald, but you can tell he patterns his game after his with the hand fighting and all that stuff, because he's just really good, regardless of his size, at getting leverage on people, getting his hands on people, taking their hands away so he can get his hands where they need to be. It's like, I don't know if he's doing knife fighting on the side like Aaron Donald does, but he gets it, man. I mean, he's got some really special skills.
I've kind of presented my 3 tiers yesterday during the Lost Pod, but I'll just kind of reiterate what I said yesterday.
And I kind of agree with where you are on this.
I think it's 3 tiers. The first tier is absolutely leaving. Probably could have announced it before the bowl game if he wanted. And I think Creed Humphrey is in there by himself. Then you get to the second tier, and it's guys that literally could go either way. I understand where they're going, and that is Ronnie Perkins or Ramondre Stevenson. I truly think that both of those guys are 50-50, and you have to remember with the Ronnie Perkins stuff, like, I think he would maybe be – I might be putting him in the third tier had he not gone through the bullshit with the NCAA and the drug test at the beginning of the year. So I would put him and Ramondre as both guys that could come back thinking about leaving. I think it's 50-50. And then you get to the third tier of guys that could really use another year. And I think it's the Perion Winfrey, Nick Benito, Isaiah Thomases of the world. And, we talked to Josh about this one, and it was Perion Winfrey. You're talking about a guy that could legitimately, and Alex Grinch kind of pointed it out. He's almost said it every time we've talked to him here over the last couple of weeks. They think he could be the best interior defensive tackle in the country next year. And if you put a full season together, you put a full summer together, and this is only if Perion Winfrey wants to go through the doldrums of the summer, working his ass off and everything that goes into it.
And go to school.
That's
always the thing.
Asking a lot. You could literally make life-changing money by the work that you put in over the next 9-10 months here starting in January. And if you want to buy in and you want to be that guy and be the next great defensive tackle from the University of Oklahoma, I think it ends up paying off, and you could end up being, somewhere in the middle of the first round by the end of it all. I think it's pretty obvious that, and I think it's Alex and Grinch has said it, Lincoln Riley has said it, just kind of almost hinting at how young of a player he is. And if you can get a guy like that to buy back into the program, not only are you helping the 2021 team, but you could literally make money that changes not just your life, but your family's life. And he could probably do that, if he comes out this year. But you're really, and I think somebody outlined it on the board a couple of days ago, maybe even about a week ago, as far as like just the difference in the type of money that you would make by coming back and being that middle first round pick. And, I think that's an opportunity that could be very appealing to Perion Winfrey. So right now, I kind of think Creed is the only guy that I would legitimately sign off on thinking he kind of has his mind made up, and everybody else is kind of in that, should he stay or should he go? And, I guess in a kind of a weird, sick, strange way, it's like if Ronnie Perkins has a really good night on Wednesday against Florida, maybe that pushes him over the edge of wanting to leave. But we'll see. The running back situation is interesting. If Ramondre wants to come back, I guess, would probably lean towards him leaving. But who knows? It'll be kind of interesting to see what goes into the decision-making process here over the next couple weeks.
You now have the Crimson Corner legitimately praying that Ronnie Perkins gets dinged up in the first quarter. Not hurt, but just dinged up to where he can't go. Yeah. No, but
can he have like a Perrion Winfrey type game in the Big 12 Championship where he gets back there and makes a lot of plays but doesn't necessarily
gets a face mask here or there. Yeah.
A lot of plays.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing, and I understand people are hesitant or not hesitant, but people, they just ignore what this year has been like for these kids because they haven't lived it. And for a lot of people, life is pretty normal. But for these guys, it is anything but normal. I mean, waiting on these tests to come back 3 times a week, going through what they have to go through as far as social distancing and staying away from people and being quarantined, trying to be in whatever bubble they can kind of put together to be in. Like, I do kind of worry that there's going to be some decisions that you don't expect, i.e. Perrion Winfrey, just because I could see someone saying, look, this is not real fun for me. I don't want to do this for another year, and I might as well be getting paid to do this because this is not really what any of us signed up. I just think someone's going to have that attitude that you don't expect. And could it be Isaiah Thomas? Could it be Perrion Winfrey? Could it be Nick Bonito? I don't know. I'm just saying I would withhold judgment like it's any other year just because of what all these kids have had to go through this year if they do make that decision that you don't expect.
Yeah, I mean, that goes into the fact, like, we think we know who these kids are, and then this year with the Zoom, you really didn't get a chance. So you have an idea, but you don't know what their motivations are. And there's just no way of knowing that until they actually say it.
It's also kind of interesting, too, is just the fact of the matter of as far as, like, the extra year of eligibility. We didn't talk about this yesterday in the Lost Pod, but, like, are there any guys out there that you think, would, I guess this is kind of a 3-part question, leave, but go graduate and attend a different school? I'm thinking that's like a Robert Barnes, maybe
because they have 2 years Royals instead of 1. Yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Or are there guys that will just flat out come back next season that were expected to leave?
Right.
I guess an Eric Swinson would maybe be in that mix, depending on what ends up happening with a Stacey Wilkins and how that irons out. And then you have the guys that just flat out transfer, and I guess you've already kind of seen that with the 2 that are in the portal, in Tanner Mordecai, who's now headed to SMU, and TJ Pledger, who is undetermined at this point.
But that's a good example again, because, I mean, they know they have that extra year, so they feel more confident about going into the portal. But, yeah, I've always been – I think a lot of people have looked at it from that way. I've always been curious about the 2016 class guys, the Chance Sylvie, the Brian Meade, the Eric Swenson, the John Michael Terry, the guys that you – heading into last spring, you're like, okay, this is our last go around with them. And then we start thinking how we're going to replace them, who's going to take their spots. If those guys come back, how does that clog up everything at those certain spots?
Yeah, and I think Lincoln's the kind of coach, he's going to have a plan for that stuff. I mean, he's not. I don't think he's a guy that's just going to want to have numbers to have them. I mean, I think he's going to have discussions with a lot of people saying, we don't really see it working out for you here next year. Because we have this guy coming in, or we're going to get this transfer. I just think I don't think he's going to be a guy that wants to carry a big roster and then have to deal with that, a year from now, 2 years from now, when the NCAA just comes out and says, okay, everybody's got to go back to 85. So one of the things that we brought up yesterday as well, and I know you were talking about this, Eddie, but Charleston Rambo, Does he transfer out? I mean,
has Rambo scored a touchdown since Missouri State?
No, he scored 2 in the first game and hasn't scored since. He's dropped 2.
Yes, he has. But I mean and he had the one that was called back because of Haselwood's holding. But that is fascinating that Rambo's not found the end zone.
They kind of stopped running that jet sweep that they used him on so much, and they would use Haselwood on a lot. And they've gone to more, counter stuff off of the GT power and the GT, all the GT game. But yeah, I mean, it's just the offense is just a little bit different. You haven't had as many shots down the field in the last half of the season. The TCU game was kind of the end of the deep shot because that's pretty much all that game was. And I think losing Stogner probably had something to do with that. And then Mims being banged up had something to do with that. And, it's just, I don't know. This offense has been up and down. It's been stagnant at times. The play calling's been weird. But I don't think anybody ever thought more Rambo was the solution to fix things this year.
But
less Rambo was more the solution.
Theo Howard, Obialo, I mean, those are 2 guys that
I don't believe that
Obialo.
I don't think that Obialo is actually a real person.
He's played Warzone. That's all he tweets about on Twitter. So, but I mean, theoretically, those guys could both come back, which sounds crazy because it's like
maybe they'd want
sure.
Theo Howard back just because he's still coming off of that Achilles. I don't know why I say Achilles. Achilles.
So that's just a lot of the conversations, and you kind of hear the frustration in Riley's voice when he mentions the roster management. But that's just what this next month and a half is going to all be about.
By the way, let's go into this, Bob. What are your feelings on? Josh talked about this once again on Lost Pod yesterday, but he continues to feel good about Tristen Leigh and thinks that he's kind of like. We kind of compared it to an Emeka Egbuka in reverse, where he went on that trip and got enamored, and ever since then he's kind of come back to OU. But obviously, if you win this game and you look good doing it, I think the biggest thing for why I said it's so important for Riley is not just he needs an SEC win, but it gives you that bump in recruiting to just kind of be like, yeah, the SEC. They're not any better than us. Which is what Clemson has that nobody else has right now.
Because when you look at the hats on the table that are going to be there, you're going to see Florida, LSU. I don't know if he'll throw in the Buckeyes, but if you see those 3 other schools and then you pick OU, yeah, that's definitely a nice shot in the arm. And I can see where Josh is coming from. That makes a lot of sense because it is true. When you don't get to make a lot of visits, maybe the ones you do make stand out more than ever before. And even though Florida lost to LSU during that weekend, that doesn't really cloud what happens throughout the rest of the stay. And maybe what Ryan Day and the Buckeye staff had to do with Emeka, it's probably what Lincoln Riley and Bill Bedenbaugh had to do with Tristen. There's no I don't know the word, under the radar rumor or something like that that's been kind of circulating here in the last week where it's like, oh boy, you guys should really be on the watch for this. It does feel like maybe the situation has played itself out to where Leigh picks OU without any real drama Saturday. But I mean, here we are about 4 days away just from letting it finally happen. But there hasn't been that last minute swell of just like, oh boy, you guys should really be worried. There's something that could definitely be going down. Unlike Camar Wheaton, where you had a lot of that smoke and you're like, is he going to do it? What's his mindset? You haven't really had that doubt that Tristen Leigh doesn't have a clear idea of exactly what he wants to do and how he wants to do it.
Well, yeah, and if you really, if he really is in a place where he is, comfortable with Oklahoma and he sees Oklahoma go out and beat Florida, I got to think that's almost like, yeah, that's a sign. That's where I'm supposed to be. And it probably would give him a little bit of comfort in just going ahead and making that decision.
And you see the way him and Caleb interact on social media. It just feels like a different vibe between where those other schools are trying to recruit them still. I get that. And there are other signees on those teams trying to do it. It just feels like it's different when it's Caleb trying to talk to Tristan.
I'm working on my Christmas lights for next year. See if I can help out with recruiting by my Christmas lights.
No doubt. That's something. I don't even know how you do something like that. But they changed it up, whatever it had to be before signing day to what it had to be post signing day. But I mean, when you look at, I actually think about writing this story for Friday that Tristen Leigh himself doesn't feel like the most valuable recruit ever. But if you package it as to what OU fans have seen in the last 2-3 weeks, that Saturday announcement is going to be so magnified because you can't go from thinking you had Bryce Foster, Camar Wheaton, Emeka Egbuka, all those guys, and then end up with zero. And so, I don't know how good Tristen Leigh is by himself, but the totality of the situation just makes Saturday all that much bigger.
He's kind of like the emotional, what do they call that? The security pet that you take on the plane with you?
Yeah, kind of. Yep.
He's like the security pet of this recruiting class. He's 6'6", and that's a big security pet.
Emotional support animal.
Emotional support animal, yeah, that's what they are.
Yep.
Which I think you're only allowed dogs now. I think they've finally gotten rid of the parrots and the whatever else, monkeys and stuff people were taking. I think you could just have a dog. Although I know people that travel with their dogs and they buy them a seat. Yeah, they can afford it. Eddie, I don't... do you have like a 10 p.m. meeting tonight or something like that for videographers for the game?
There is one, yeah.
You don't know if you'll be there or not?
I'm going to try to. I plan on it, but I usually kind of blow that thing off before games anyways. I think I will sit in on it just to kind of get the lay of the land on what's going down tomorrow.
It's unbelievable that tomorrow we have a football game.
Oh, I know.
On a Wednesday.
Oklahoma State has a game in an hour.
Yeah, I can't wait.
I muted myself. It was 10 a.m. I kept saying that you guys weren't reacting. It's like, oh, I muted myself. It was 10 a.m. this morning.
It said on the app that it was 10 p.m. though.
If you look at the Cotton Bowl app.
Yeah, it said 10 p.m. on the app.
I'm going to look at the app again.
Maybe they just changed it.
See if they changed it.
Well, apparently I didn't miss much.
No, but it did. It actually said 10 p.m. because Eddie and I were both looking at it. We were like, what the f***? And I just figured like it took them all day to get everything set up and everything.
Yeah, I did too.
Check
I guess
for
that makes sense
updated
why they
content.
Yeah, 10 a.m.
Well, you have an excuse now. You were waiting for radio. 10 p.m.
I was working. Maybe they'll send out a... I need somebody to CC me on the Notes app about that.
It is. It's kind of strange that, OU is just showing up today, but, that's kind of what was expected.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing
it is.
The thing is, they did their walkthrough yesterday, so I guess they'll go to AT&T tonight and just kill each other.
I don't know what that's the whole thing. Is like the whole thing is so weird because there is no bowl experience. It literally, Carrie, I think you asked Lincoln a couple weeks ago, just as far as like, what does the whole bowl experience sound like to you? And he very bluntly said, it sounds like a road game.
Yeah. He said, he just said, what does it look like? He said a road game.
Even this morning, he didn't say like what a great week it's been in Dallas and Arlington. We can't wait to get there. It's like we're actually still not there. So we can't talk about all the things we've done here.
It's the first time that Eddie did not destroy a hospitality room in a decade.
Florida just had another opt-out. Defensive tackle Kyrie Campbell has opted out.
Holy crap. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he just announced it and they already... I mean, surely he's not opting out from Dallas.
That would be something.
What if he woke up late and missed the play and he was like, oh, crap, I got to opt out now. But they came in yesterday, so... Dan Mullen did the same thing that Lincoln's doing. He's like, I'll just let the players announce it. I don't know. How is that like... I don't know. I guess it's just everybody has to announce everything now. The players themselves. We've been used to that happening in recruiting for years now. So I guess that's just the de facto thing. That's the new standard. Just players have to announce their own shit.
Are the Buckeyes the only one that really had like a COVID list that they sent out the night before?
Like with names and stuff?
Yeah.
I haven't seen anybody else do that, yeah. Well, Missouri just said, we can't play. TCU just said, we're done.
We can't play.
I kind of knew that shit was going to happen with some of these schools, didn't you? I mean,
yeah.
What did they?
It's amazing. It is amazing that OU's COVID numbers were as low as they were. I mean, they were 0%.
Yeah. Well, it kind of makes sense. I mean, that considering a bunch of that testing was done, I guess, before the holiday. I mean,
it was before and after. It was before and after.
There's nobody on campus.
Right.
But
that's what I took it as. People were adhering to what's being asked. There's no one around that's not caring. They're all doing it right. They got tested 26th. It'd be this test that we.
Well, it just shows you that families took it seriously. Because I mean, it was through the 26th, so it was the day after they got back. Those test results were included in there too.
But I guess I'm not really aware on how it would work, but if you got it, say Christmas Day, would it show up the 26th or would it show up like the 28th?
It would be after, yeah.
That I'm not sure.
But I'm sure most people took pretty good precautions with the families, kept it small. I mean, at least I think most of those guys, you just want to see your mom and dad. You probably hadn't seen them spending time with them.
I had absolutely zero problems with them letting them go home.
No, it was ridiculous to not let them. I mean, you'd be just a huge asshole.
And what are they really going to accomplish? I mean...
Yeah, there was no... I mean, they had 7 days of practice regardless, so that was...
I do find the conversation about, like, Oklahoma gets nothing out of playing Florida or in the lose-lose thing, I find that to be the biggest loser mentality that you could possibly have. I get the argument, I get the narrative, but I think it's super, super important that Oklahoma wins this game and just gives themselves something good going into an offseason in which there hasn't been a whole lot of good. It's been about a month of kind of licking your wounds every year coming out of the college football semifinal. And as good as that is, as great as it is for the program to get that type of exposure, at the same time, I do think it's important that they get some sense of, at the end of the day, just winning a bowl game.
Yeah, I mean, all the select few from the 2016 class are the only people that have experienced a bowl win, and really only Caleb Kelly had any part in that Sugar Bowl win. You know, John Michael Terry and Chance Hill, like, none of those guys actually did anything, or they were redshirting.
Yeah.
So it's a different feeling. It's great really, as they've been with the conference.
It might have been
none of those guys know bowl wins.
I think that's Caleb Kelly's finest moment as a Oklahoma Sooner.
It still is, which is so strange to say.
That quarterback was awful for Auburn.
After Jordan Evans took him out.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, they got to the point. Didn't they bring in a Last Chance U guy?
Yeah, they John Franklin III.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So
that's a name I hadn't heard in a while.
I was very excited when he came in the game too. I was like, Last Chance U guy. That was before I was completely just. Last Chance U just it jumped the shark for me. Oh yeah,
it did.
There's only so many times when you actually played JUCO ball. It's a lot of PTSD involved. Watching that because you're like, God, I forgot how many dumbasses go to junior college. So, well, it's going to be a good one. We will all three be there. This is the first time since the Kansas game, I think we've all three been somewhere together. Isn't that right? Kansas game?
Yeah, in the first travel situation.
Yeah, first time traveling away from home that all three of us have been able to go to something. Eddie was not allowed to go to OU Texas this year, which was that your first real disappointment of the season, Eddie? Where you were just like, F this season?
I mean, it's to be honest, it's kind of been like that all year. Just when we found out all the protocols that were going to be in place, even for home games. But I think that was probably the first one that I was like, damn, all right, whatever. I'd be lying, and I've said this on the radio. I think I've said it on the U40 before. It's like, as much as I've enjoyed the football season, I think just kind of the gravity of the situation and kind of the zaniness and the craziness of, basically being ready at a moment's notice to be prepared for any type of news. And today was a great example of that with the Haselwood stuff. I've been kind of in this mentality of just, I don't know, not necessarily over the season, but definitely like, yeah, all right, let's get one more in, get the bowl game in, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, my heart necessarily wouldn't be broken. I think that's kind of been the best way to say it. But yeah, I mean, I'm ready to get back into normalcy just like everybody else and kind of start moving and progressing towards, spring football, which should be humongous considering all things that are going into the 2021 season. And then obviously, into college football season. Because I do think by July, August of 2021, I think we'll be looking forward to tailgating. We'll be looking forward to packing into the stadium once again and kind of everything that goes into that.
Would you be willing to get tattooed to prove that you have taken the vaccine if it meant you could go to sporting events or concerts?
That sounds like some government bullshit.
See, I know. But
yeah, like if I had to like carry it around like it's a goddamn movie, I mean, yeah, tattoo me up.
I would love for that.
I'm ready. I'm willing and ready to do anything.
I would love for that to happen. And you could make it voluntary, but I think it would make Facebook explode if they came up with a plan where you had to get a mark of some type. Because who wants to carry around a damn card? Like, it would be more convenient. But then, you'd have people that would go and get fake tattoos to try and circumvent it that never got the vaccine.
So
Eddie, you probably would have to have a chip of some kind.
What do you get to do tomorrow?
I mean, the way that I've read everything is shoot the game from not down on the field, but like from a first row, which they're calling the operational zone. And they have the regular time limits and stuff that we act like we follow and then really don't. But it'll be basically shooting the game like in Norman, but not on top of the field from the top level, more so from closer down to field level.
I think we may have Mr. I Broke My House calling in now. Hold on. Here we go. Josh, are you there? I think Josh is there. It says Josh joined. Josh, you there?
I am here, guys. What's going on?
So loud. All right. How'd you break your house? What the hell are you doing?
So, guys, and I should note that all the stud finder jokes, all the these things were being used. I was doing what I've done, hanging up half a dozen things, and I was drilling a hole in a wall. My stud finder had told me there was a stud. Now that the house has been torn apart and I can see what I drilled into, My stud finder just mistaked a gas pipe for a stud. So I drilled directly into the gas pipe, into the main line, literally coming from the outside of our house.
How did you know? Was it just an immediate, like, I mean, I'm glad there wasn't like a spark or something.
Absolutely. No. So what ended up happening was literally, so I go through the drywall, I can, you feel that initial give, and then I feel the next pressure. I'm like, okay, there's my 2x4. And I go to hit it, and all of a sudden I feel like there's air in my face. Like I can just feel it hitting my face. And, within a half a second, you can smell it. You're like, oh, that's not air. So, and you immediately, so I was like, okay. Well, then I had to figure out what to do, and I had to call the gas company's like emergency line, and it's all very frenetic. Like they want me to call 911 after I've hung up with them. It was a dramatic little period of time.
Did your like wife and kids get in the car and just drive off?
Well, luckily Tiffany was at work, the girls were at school, and then I had to wait for the guy to come out. They literally took my meter away. I don't have a gas meter outside my house right now. I've got to wait for the city to come back, approve the fix that has happened today, and then also come back and fix and then wait for the gas company to actually come back and reinstall my gas meter, because I guess they take it away so that somebody couldn't just turn it back on after they leave. So it was a little bit of a disaster of a day. So so a lot of good ththings happened in the McQuistion household all of a month in.
Well, thank God Lanny quit smoking and she wasn't out there with you.
As long as it's cigarettes, that's a real improvement for Laney. She's been living the wild life in her daycare. So but so far so good.
That sucks, man. That's scary as hell, too.
Oh, it was. Because, it was one of those things. And, like a week before, Tiffany had read some story about a house exploding or something, like from something very similar. So she's like, don't flip on any light switches. Don't do anything. So I'm shutting doors closed, because, I was thinking of when you
And this was in your garage?
Yes, this is in the garage of the house. This was the smell, you could smell it out in the street. There was so much gas just pouring out there for a few minutes. Scary.
It's a great way to endear yourself to your new neighbors, isn't it?
Well, and that was the scariest thing. I was like, do I go tell my neighbors? Like, is their first real memory of me like, yeah, this is the asshole that punctured his gas line? Or do I let it go? And I'm just like, they'll be fine. Because once we got it shut off, really the danger's gone at that point. But it was a little bit of a mess there for a while.
You definitely paid the $70 to get that Wallabot, didn't you?
That's already been ordered and is on its way. This will not happen again.
Holy crap. I would never. I've drilled into my wall a lot during this pandemic, and now you have me scared shitless.
This little error that I did in a matter of seconds is going to end up costing me about $1,500 all in. So
I was going to ask, would a home warranty cover something like that?
No, there is none of that. This is strictly
user stupidity. No, I don't think that's covered.
Yeah. No, they don't cover you just being a dumbass. So that didn't slide for me at all.
So, I don't know how we go anywhere from there. We're just glad that you're alive. Really, seriously. Like after hearing that story, holy shit.
Turn from one shit show to another. Jadon Haselwood's not playing in the bowl game, Josh.
So, did I miss any scorching hot takes from this one?
Not really. It's
scorching
just
hot takes in the lost pod.
Well, certainly not on Jadon Haselwood.
No.
We all just assumed he would play.
Yeah, there were no scorching hot takes from the press conference this morning either, other than how do you go like 4 questions in before you ask about missing half your offense to Dan Mullen.
That really was.
Just unbelievable.
That's amazing.
But no, all we said really to start the show was, there's a little bit of positive spin and there's a little bit of reality that's, it's somewhere in the middle. Like it's not all like, oh, he told Lincoln and the coaches, and they were fine with it. Everybody's on the same page. Like, that's not exactly, I mean, he did tell the coaches. That doesn't mean that they were fine with it. And it doesn't mean when you're sitting there posting training videos that it makes people more fine with it. When you can't play or practice, but you can go home and do training, like, that's not smart. I'm not saying it's a bad look. I'm just saying that's not like, maybe you did go home and train. Don't post it on the internet because that's not making anything better. But I did say, you know, I've been contacted since we've done this pod just to kind of clear things up, because it's like, I think all the reporting that's been done on this has been done from the Jadon Haselwood side because it's all rosy and nothing's wrong. And I don't believe that he's got a knee tweaked. Otherwise, you're not working out. You're sitting at home, you know, just resting. I just think that he opted out. He didn't want to play. I think there is some truth to, you know, him being a little bit disgruntled, if you will. And there are multiple coaches on the OU staff that think it is, quote, very weird, end quote. But that doesn't mean it can't all be fixed and worked out and it'll all blow. I think it will all blow over. It just doesn't. And like Bob brought up, it doesn't match up with the fact that Lincoln sung his praises early in the season about how engaged he was with the team while he was still rehabbing.
Well, and I think, doesn't the video only make it worse? Because, I mean, guys, and forgive me if my memory is just jaded because or a little shaky. This year has been so weird. But didn't he get hurt working out at home? Like, isn't that the story?
Correct.
Like, didn't that?
Yep.
Well, we were only told it was a freak accident, and it didn't happen during any kind of football activities.
Right.
So how is he going to act frustrated or irritated about how things have played out this year when you created this reality? Like, you did. This had nothing to do with Oklahoma. You think Oklahoma doesn't want to put Jadon Haselwood on the field? Don't be crazy. They want to play that dude, but he hasn't been ready for the vast majority of the year. And now that he is ready, he doesn't want to play. Like, I don't know what you do with that if you're Oklahoma. So,
well, yeah, and the coaches are like, you know, you just made a huge play in the Big 12 championship game, and we want you to get more comfortable with your quarterback against a good team so he'll trust you more next year, and then you can come right out of the gates firing on all cylinders.
Now, if his irritation is that Charleston Rambo is getting snaps, I think we can all agree on that. I think we can all join the confusion over that reality. But at the same time, but I mean, with that exception, like, what are you mad about that you didn't do? You've chosen most of this. Not that he chose to get hurt, but you were doing stuff at home that OU was not supervising, had no control over. How is that on OU? I mean, I'm not saying it's necessarily on him either. Stuff happens.
They also cleared him to come back
at Oklahoma.
They also cleared him to come back early against Kansas. I mean, Bob and I were kind of confused on that at the time.
Not to mention, in a game in which he came back from injury early, a significant injury early, he had the third most snaps out of any wide receiver in that game. Then you go into the Bedlam game, and all of a sudden, Jadon Haselwood can't play because he's apparently, and I'm not blaming him for, having to go through COVID quarantine or whatever you want to call it. He wasn't available, though.
Right.
So the snaps, you look at the Baylor game coming out of it, I put it all on the board. You come out of that Baylor game, and he had 13 snaps. He had, 13 snaps, and also, I believe, had one of the lowest run blocking grades in the game. Like, I mean, I'm just not buying this thing about if he's unhappy, and I'm not saying this in a derogatory term, but he's being a little bitch about it.
I'm not saying that.
With all due respect.
You cannot call another man a bitch and say, with all due respect, Mr. Dennett.
I think we just did. But I will say, Josh, and I led with this at the beginning, like, I'm not mad at him per se. It's just a strange thing to do if you're looked at as this team leader, and then all of a sudden you go home for Christmas. And I mean, even go back into his recruitment, we knew that there were people in his ears, like, and all of a sudden you now have this huge problem. You can't make it back to Norman to be with your teammates. It is strange.
And you're opting out. You're opting out, but everything's fine, and you're going to come back now. Like, who opts out of a bowl game and then just returns like nothing ever happened the next year?
You know, the thing that I don't understand, I'm looking at the board and watching people go into panic. What is it Jadon Haselwood's done on the field that you're like, you just can't recover from this? What are you talking about? Like,
well, he's a 5-star and he's got an amazing potential. I mean,
he does.
You don't see a whole lot of receivers like him. I'm here for the panic. I mean, like, panic. I love this kid. I love this kid's potential. I think he could be. I still think that he is, even with the emergence of Marvin Mims, we don't know where he's going to. I still think Jadon Haselwood is the best pro prospect on this roster because when he's at his best, he's strong, he's powerful, he breaks tackles.
You mean as a receiver?
As a receiver, yes.
Okay.
As a receiver, because like his best is he could possibly be a little bit better than the God. Why can't I remember the Iowa State guy's name? Hutchinson. Yeah, I think his game could be that. He could be that dominating of a receiver in college.
No. Don't get me wrong. The potential's all there for him to be worthy of this. But like people acting like this is some irrecoverable loss, they've done pretty well the last 2 years, and he's had very little role. So like this idea that he just can't be, like he's an insurmountable loss. Are we talking about the same receiver room? Like there's plenty of talent in that room, and there's even more coming. So like I don't know, but I mean it like you'd rather have him. Don't misunderstand me, but like I don't understand it. It's one of those things that, and as a recruiting guy, I guess I should get it, but it doesn't make sense to me. But no, I mean he's a huge talent, and that's not something you want to go through if you're Oklahoma. But I'm with you, Kerry. From what I've heard and the few people I've had a chance to talk to, it sounds like this will probably be fine. It's just one of those things that, like, it's weird. It doesn't make sense. And it, like this could have been his big spotlight moment, and he's doing whatever he's doing.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, when your actions don't match up with your words, it concerns you. And I think that, and like we said, Lincoln's going to put a smiling face over this whole deal, and that's what he does. He doesn't let stuff that goes on behind the scenes get out to the public, or if he did, it would be because it was just, I mean, like, opt out stuff like that. He hates Trey Brown opting out for this game, but he was actually, Alex Grinch, we talked about this. Alex Grinch was more supportive, I thought, of Trey Brown opting out than Lincoln's appeared to be. So I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting when he's asked about it after, if everything is just fine and dandy, like his people are saying, or if, even Lincoln's like, I don't know what's going on with the kid, or I'm concerned, or whatever.
There definitely has to be some type of element, though. Like, I just think that, and I think I fall into the olds category on this as far as like the opt out. It doesn't bother me. I understand where they're coming from, but even somebody like a Gerald McCoy had tweeted about it. Like, what's up with all these kids opting out? And I think it had more in reference to do with like the Florida kids, but it's a different mentality right now. And especially in a year in which shit has been wild. I don't fault anybody for wanting to just hit the reset button on 2020. It's been fucked up. Like, I get it. It just is. It's weird when it comes to fruition and when things happen, how everything has gone down. I think
he fought so hard to come back, and then when he's back, he don't want to play. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Josh, we talked about Tristen Leigh and kind of our on the Lost Pod, we've referred to it many times, kind of how we compared it to Emeka Egbuka, that, in kind of your thoughts about how you feel like he's kind of come back to OU. We did not talk about Camar Wheaton, and I know you can't wait to talk about that again for the second day in a row. Maybe that's what made the pod disappear, the Camar Wheaton discussion yesterday. But just quickly, kind of address kind of what went down there and what any possible prospects might be for the future at the running back position.
Sure. Well, and I did want to say with Leigh, I know he talked to Oklahoma yesterday. I haven't even had a chance to put that on the board yet. I just kind of had that conversation here in the last 30 minutes or so. So he talked to Oklahoma recently. Everything I'm told that went very well. Everything still sounds like it's headed in the right direction for Oklahoma. So that seems to be moving well.
Emotional security recruit. We compared
absolutely.
him. We compared him to taking an emotional security pet on a plane.
That's what we compared him
for this recruiting class.
After missing Wheaton, Foster, Egbuka, this is the one they got to get.
Yeah, this is the Snuggie. This is the pillow that's going to make them feel better at night. So that makes sense. Well, with Wheaton, like I said, I mean, and I went through it yesterday, but this is a guy that the night before his announcement, I'm told it was still up in the air. Some people I told that I talked to kind of told me, it's still Alabama. That's kind of where he's leaning. But then I talked to somebody else, and they're like, nah, he's open. Like it's not. He hasn't decided yet, which is why I hate when these guys set an announcement date before they know what they want to do. But that's another diatribe for another day. With Wheaton, then going into that, what was that, Wednesday, he really kind of sat down, talked with some people, and it sounds like he had decided it was Alabama in the morning. And then about lunch and then kind of into the early afternoon, he'd gone back with Oklahoma. He had asked for an edit. Like he was engaged with it was going to be OU again.
Almost has to be when Caleb Williams and those guys started tweeting things. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, that's fine. And I hadn't even thought about that, Eddie, but you're absolutely right. That timeline makes sense. And then about 5:00, he kind of came back and told some people it was going to be Alabama. But then as the night wore on, you still were hearing stuff like this is not over. He's still, like there's still some stuff going on. And it's one of those things where and like I said, all along with Camar, it was so weird because it wasn't ever a situation where you're talking about, okay, this is, we know because he talked to Oklahoma. We know because he talked to Alabama. It's all secondary sources and it's all weird. And so you're kind of guessing who really has information and who doesn't. And in this case, I mean, it was just a situation where I think, Alabama, he just felt a little better about that situation, felt a little more confident, obviously, with what Alabama's done at running back in recent years. So it makes some sense. I mean, you can understand where he's coming from. But, there's been this idea that, well, okay, Oklahoma lost him. They should go keep recruiting him. I said it yesterday, guys, and I've said it over and over again. How do you recruit a guy that won't talk to you? Like, I don't know how you do that. He kind of made a decision, like almost like online shopping. Like he looked at the cars, he found what he wanted, and then he pretty much signed the contract and walked out. Like there was no time to sell him on the upgrade package or a different car altogether. He knew what he wanted to do, so he did it. Like there's just not a lot more to that story. And I really don't think Oklahoma's going to move in that direction. I think they're going to look in the transfer portal. And I know everybody kind of gets, upset or wound up about that. Let's see what happens. Let's get through these bowls and let's see who suddenly shows up in the transfer portal. People are kind of acting like, well, right now there's not all these elite guys. That's not usually the way this works. It usually pushes into January and you see more guys once they start getting their draft report cards back, start making maneuvers and making decisions on what they want to do. So let's see what happens. But like I said, I think they definitely will have to go to the transfer portal, and I think that is definitely the plan at this point.
All right. I think that just about does it. I think we're good. Hopefully this thing does not. I'm double recording, so it's freaked me out. So we should have a pod. If you're hearing this, it worked today. All right.
I am not talking about Camar Wheaton tomorrow. I won't do it. I did 2 in a row. That's all I've got.
I think we're going to be okay. I really hope so. All right, guys. I really appreciate it. I know it's a quick turnaround for the Cotton Bowl. Don't forget the Eskridge Lexus post-game show. Eddie and I will be bringing that to you after the game is over. Late tomorrow night. We'll be up late, but hey, if Oklahoma goes out, plays well, and you guys are happy, we'll be happy to stay up and do it. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks to deadsoxy.com as well, DEADSOXY.com. Go check them out, and appreciate them being a sponsor of the pod all year long. Thanks to you, Josh, for joining us. I'm glad that things are safe at your house, mostly. Thanks to Bob. Thanks to Eddie. Hope you guys have a great new year as well, and we'll see you again next week on another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com.